Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar, Strategy for Success, Keeping Your Documents Organized Across Multiple Projects and Platforms. Thank you for spending some time with us today. This webinar is brought to you by Applied Software, and my name is Madeline Casey, and I'm the Product Marketing Specialist for 360 Sync, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we begin, I'm going to play a short video to get everyone familiar with our webinar platform.
Hi, and welcome to this Applied Software webinar. We're glad you could join us today. Get more out of the webinar by clicking on the icons at the bottom of your screen. You can resize these. This button leads to resources. This button adjusts the volume. Just don't push this one. I'm watching you. Be sure to find Applied Software on social media and on our website, asti.com, where we'll empower you to discover what's possible. You can also find a complete schedule of upcoming events, on-demand webinars, and training on our calendar at asti.com/calendar. This is being recorded for your convenience. You'll be receiving an email with the recording link for future reference. And make sure to stick around. We'll answer questions at the end. See you there.
All right, now I am pleased to introduce today's presenter, Michael Reuter. Michael is a Senior Application Specialist here at Applied Software. Thank you guys again for joining. Michael, take it away.
All right, thanks guys. So I guess the first thing we're going to do here today is we're going to start with the poll. So our question to you is, I guess, what is the most frustrating aspect of document organization within your company? Is it long-winded file and folder names? Is it that each project has a different folder structure? Is it that each data source has a different folder structure? Is it that the naming convention is just way too complicated? You know, what is the what's the most frustrating thing? So I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to make the decision about that, and then we'll go from there. So I know for me, the thing that was the most frustrating for me when I was a project engineer for Walsh Construction, the most frustrating thing for me was definitely that each data source had a completely different folder structure. That was really frustrating because then I would have to, you know, kind of pick and choose where my files went, and it wasn't an apples to apples comparison from one data source to another. Me personally, I was working with SharePoint, BIM 360, and my server, so having three different folder naming conventions and setups was really quite frustrating. So yeah, so that was definitely most frustrating for me. So I can see we're about 75% there. I guess I'll give everybody a couple seconds longer, and then we'll reveal the poll results. Okay, so now we'll just kind of go ahead to the poll results there. We'll push that to you guys. So looks like it was either that each project or each data source had a different folder structure. That was the most frustrating, but then other people were still frustrated with the long-winded file and folder names. I'm definitely there with you. And then the naming convention is too complicated. I agree with you guys there as well. So what we're going to talk about today is developing a strategy for success for keeping your documents organized across multiple projects and platforms, okay? We're going to talk about a couple of things. I'll show you a couple of different folder structures that I've seen in my experience across all the companies that I help. So there's a couple of things to keep in mind when you're worrying about document organization. And to me, the most important thing that you really want to deal with or that you want to really tackle first is you want to be able to create a repeatable folder structure from project to project, from data source to data source. You want that to be a simple and consistent folder structure, so that whether you're working on a hospital project or an airport or a multifamily building, everything is named the same. It is named simply and concisely, and those folders are always the same from one project to another. So once you pick up, if you move midway through a project, you can just pick up where you left off from the previous one. I think that it's always a good idea to create a folder structure template, whether that's on your server that you always save, or definitely if you're using something like BIM 360 or Procore, you create a template project that has all of your base folder structures already built into it. And then you just definitely need to make that part of your project kickoff process. So basically, you set up the folder structure, you set up the template project, whatever it is, and you do that at the beginning of the project. And then from day one, before anybody even has put a single file into that folder, your server, BIM 360, SharePoint, Procore, whatever, all of those things are already up to date and have the most recent file, like the same file structure. Okay. So one thing that I always see is that people are kind of wrestling with how to manage public files and private files. Okay, I see this a lot in BIM 360. I see it a lot in Procore. Why would you need to use private files or public files? Well, oftentimes that you have proprietary files that are just for your company, things that are maybe contracts or cost information or change orders or estimating data. You don't want to expose that to everybody, like all the subcontractors out there, the owner, the architect, all that stuff, or the general contractor, whoever it may be. So sometimes it makes sense to have to start out with your folder tree having a public folder and a private folder. Okay. So basically what you're doing there is you're just trying to think about what files need, who needs access to what files and why do they need them. And so then you split them up and manage them in separate folders so that you can solve that. Okay. Another big problem that I see with document management and folder management especially is uniformity across all platforms. So now all the time you can't always this is not something that you can always manage, I guess, across every project, but you can at the very least manage the folder that you're in charge of, or the folders that you're in charge of. But you just need to have a good naming convention. You need to have all of your folder structures always the same. Again, so that if you leave the project and someone else comes on, it's just going to be really easy for you to for someone else to pick up where you left off, because your company has something that has a manageable, organized folder structure. It needs to be easy to access and easy to use. I can't tell you how many times I'm having to deal with customers that have really complicated, really deep down the rabbit hole folder structures where we're going 10, 15, 20 clicks deep just to get to one file. That may be great for someone that is intimately aware of that project on a day-to-day basis, but if you're going to back this stuff up, it's going to be real painful if someone's having to come back and take a look at this 10 years from now when there's a renovation project for this, or for that project, and then they're having to do a deep dive into 10, 15, 20 deep folders. Also, what I always see from customers is just a ridiculous naming convention. I see that more often than you'd probably care to believe, but this probably seems obvious, but really file names should be simple. Okay. It should, if we're talking about an RFI, it should be the RFI, number, and then a brief description of what it is that you're looking at. If you're going to use folder structure for RFIs, same thing. Just keep it simple, and name, just have it, have the idea of what the RFI is about in the title of it. There's all. I'll show you today. I was dealing with a customer in England that used a really long naming convention. Actually wasn't a naming convention, but their folder structure, they had over 400. It could get up to the 400 or 500s, and that makes it really hard to transfer all of that information, because really Windows really only allows for like a 256 character limit. So that makes it really, really hard to, for you to transfer files from one place to another, or just, manage all of that stuff. Because, if there's a 400 character limit in one place, but then on your server, where you're trying to back stuff up, there's only a 256 character limit, then you're going to have a lot of problems when you're trying to push files from one place to another. Another thing with naming conventions, like a lot of times I've seen, people use funky characters like greater than, less than signs, the @ symbols, pound symbols, brackets, quotation marks. I had a customer that actually was using Viewpoint that put slashes in the files and folder names. And so that really was detrimental to allowing people to, even when they downloaded it, it would error out. So make sure that you avoid funky characters. If you're going to use abbreviations, be consistent with that across the project, especially if you're naming it, you need to make sure that you're doing that. One thing that I've noticed is that Europe has a very specific strategy for naming conventions for all construction files. There's names and numbers and alphanumeric codes that are all involved in it, and so to someone that doesn't understand that, that's like you're looking at a foreign language, basically. So if you're going to do that, you need to be very, everybody has to know what the naming convention is and how it works. And you just got to hope too that 10 years from now that the naming convention rules are not going to change drastically. So I would still, maybe for the file names, I would keep up with the naming conventions, but with my folders, I would try to keep those as simple as possible when you're having to deal with something like that. Okay. Other things that you'd probably want to consider is the audience. So who's going to be viewing these files, both right now, in the future? Who do you not want to view these files? Who do you want to view these files? Things like that. So when you need to think about that, both for, I guess for now, when you want to think about that, because you want to limit the permissions inside of BIM 360 or inside of Procore or SharePoint or wherever, so that each person that you provide access to that data source, they only have access to the things that they have access to. Okay? No more, no less. But then you also need to think about the audience afterwards. How easy is this going to be to navigate in the future? Okay? So simplicity, like I've said probably 15 times now, is the key. Okay. And so then, are you tumbling down a rabbit hole? Are you being too specific? Are you basically writing a soliloquy or a paragraph when you are, typing in like a folder name or a file name? If you're doing that, simplify it. The smaller the file name, the smaller the folder structure, the easier it is for everybody, the easier that it's going to be for everybody to use, and to keep up with, and it'll be more successful. And then the other thing, like I said before, character limits for the data sources that you use. Okay, typically somewhere between 240 and 260 is the maximum length of a file name. That also includes the folder structure name. So I'll go into I'll show you that when we're looking at some of our when I'm doing my demo stuff later on, or I guess, pardon me, here in a moment. But basically, you've only got 240 to 260 characters to deal with when you're going from your server to BIM 360 to SharePoint to whatever. So your folders and the file name can only be 260 characters long. And I've actually got a list here. For Dropbox, if you use Dropbox and things like Dropbox, so Box, Dropbox, Ignite, stuff like that, your character limit is 255 characters. Okay. If you're going to your server, it's 255 or 256, depending on what version of Windows you're using. If you're looking at BIM 360, it's 254. Procore, it's 255. And then for SharePoint, which is kind of funky, it's 400. So, basically you want to make sure that your character limits for your file names and your folder structure is probably like it meets the lowest common denominator. So if you're only using SharePoint in your server, then 255 is probably going to work. 400 is not going to work if you've got multiple places to deal with. Okay. The thing that I was working with this morning was this product called BIM Extra, and they also allowed for 400. So if you're going between BIM Extra and SharePoint, then you would probably have no problem with a 400 character length folder and file structure naming convention. But if you're going between BIM Extra and BIM 360, that customer was having big time problems because files that had a destination length of more than 255 characters, they failed to download. Okay, so that's something good call right there. So someone just asked date formats and where they should go in the file name. Okay, great question. So I would say that what I see most often, or what I've seen, what you definitely want to make sure that you stay away from when you're talking about dates, is slashes in the name. Okay, I see that a lot when I'm dealing with like Excel files or with I guess with meeting minutes or something like that. You want to stay away from slashes, because when those are transferred from one place to another, it's probably going to error out for you. What I have always done is what I would suggest. What we always do here is we put the date first, and we go. It goes year, then month, then day of the year, and so basically you can sort and filter that so that everything goes in an alphanumeric order. So you could see oldest, newest, or newest to oldest really quickly. So the year, so like 2022 would be the example right there. So 2022 is first. Then the month, so February, so maybe you do 02. And then last would be the day. Okay. I would honestly hope, if you could, I would try to stay away from dates. I would try to rely on my document management systems to leverage that stuff. So basically, when you upload the file, there's metadata basically gets attached to that file, telling you when the file was last, was updated. And so rather than putting the date on it, because that's just that's what, if you're counting dashes or dots, that is 4, 6, 8. That's at least 10 characters that you're wasting there. But if you have to do it, then I suggest putting it first, because that's going to make it the easiest to alphabetize and to manage. Okay, great question. Okay, so then the last piece of the puzzle here is, this is a painful process, having to move this stuff from one place to another. So automating the process sure would be nice, okay? So there's a bunch of data sources, so that may make uploads difficult. Like, I can give you an example. Like, if you're uploading manually to BIM 360, you have to do that on a folder by folder basis. And so if you have tens of thousands of folders because you have this crazy folder structure, then you're gonna be really frustrated, because you have to create 10,000 folders, and then you've got to upload the files to those specific folders. You can't upload a file with folders inside of it to BIM 360. I'm not sure about that for Procore, but BIM 360, that's always been a very painful process. Okay. So basically my point there is you need to be agile and quick. You need to make as few folder structures and twists and turns as possible. And if possible, automation is the key. So we'll come back to that in a minute. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to share my screen. And so we're going to jump into a project that I've got. We're going to in BIM 360. So you can see right now I've got an empty document management project in the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So I'm going to come back down here. And so now what I've done is I've kind of given us an option for 3 different naming conventions, okay? Or I guess 3 different folder structures, okay? So there's an all-in-one encompassing one. There's a public and private files deviation, and then there's just a whole bunch of different naming conventions. So let's look first at 03, because that's going to be the most painful, okay? So I suggest, and you're going to see this moving forward when we look at either the like all-encompassing, like all-in-one, or the public versus private. I really suggest going with simple. Okay, so like maybe you have something numbered, and then it's got a very simple name. Okay, so 1, 2, 3 words at the most, and then you've got a number structure. Okay, then next. The other thing that I've seen, I haven't seen this as much with folders, but I have seen it a lot with file names. Okay, so you can see right here, like we've got 07-SCH-XX-01_ABC. So there's a that may mean something to somebody out there, but that means absolutely nothing to me when I'm coming into this project, unless I know exactly what the what the naming convention code is. It's almost like you kind of need like one of those NFL playbook, play sheets to kind of figure out what the heck's going on here. So I've seen that all the time with files. I've seen it sometimes with folders. I really recommend not doing that with folders. Do that with file names if that's what you have to, or if that's what you want to do. But I would not do that with folders. Okay. Then finally, long-winded naming conventions. Okay. This is my pet peeve. This is my least favorite thing. Like I said, I was dealing with that this morning with one of my customers, where they had 400 character, folder structures. So you can see right here, we've got, it says 08 space long-winded naming convention goes here. So then I come down here to this Luton Dart project, published documents, 01. So I mean, like, really, is there any point to having the Dart project, then the published documents, then this folder right here? No, not really, because there's only one folder in there. So why did we do that? That was a waste of time. So then I come in here, and we keep going. And so notice I went so far, I can't even put files into this folder because I can't even finish the name of the folder here. It would be final construction documents or whatever. So you can see, you start diving in there and you start losing things fast. So that was only, let's see, how many folders did we go deep there? So I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we went 5 deep, and then we already exhausted our 256 characters. So simplicity is definitely key. Okay. So you're going to have people that are going to want to be really specific, and being specific is great, but be specific when you're like inside of the file that you're dealing with. Don't be like unbelievably unnecessarily specific with your folder names and or your file names. Okay? So now we'll come back here. So now here's the 2 main folder structures that I see from one company to another. There's the all-in-one, and then there's a public and private, okay? And so we'll kind of talk about the pluses and minuses of both of these. So the all-in-one, my goodness, that is by far the simplest, okay? You can see I'm still using a folder structure here where we've got a number and then a name. If you've got this named every time consistently on your, from one project to another, then this is going to be, you just look for 06 and there's the legal information, okay? So once you've dealt with one project, you've dealt with them all, okay? Then when I come in here to my projects, maybe I've got a couple of folders in here, and then I've got my files in there. Same thing. For BIM coordination, when I'm naming files, it would probably be a bad idea to put it's a waste of space here to do like the space dash space. I know everybody wants to do that because it kind of looks more it's easier to kind of look at, but you're just wasting spots there. And if you've got you're going deep down a rabbit hole, spaces are at a premium, and you need to use as few as possible. My computer is, there we go. So basically you'd want to do that. So you can see right here, my naming convention basically is name of the project and then what the file is. And then if, it's possible if it was multiple levels, then maybe I would have like a dash out level 1 or something like that. But I'm trying to be as specific and implicit as possible. And to the question's point, so to someone's point, with dates, if I was going to do dates for a file, so I'll just copy this one right here, okay? If I had to do dates, what I would do is just like this, okay? I would name my file just like this, and then I would come in here and 22022 02, maybe it would even be 0223. And so then it's got it like that. So then if we had another one, maybe we've got another one for tomorrow. So now I can kind of I can sort those by by date. So then they show up like that. So that's how I would do dates. I guess you could probably even get away with punting the 20 for the next, I guess, 75 years or so. But that's how I do it. You could have it at the beginning or at the end, but to me, if you're trying to find the most recent file, putting it at the beginning is going to be the easiest way to do that. Okay, so let's see. The positives about an all-in-one is that it's simple. The negatives is that you're going to have to be a little bit more thoughtful about how you manage permissions. Okay. Then the next one would be public and private folders. Okay. So what's nice about this one is that you can just give, certain people or everybody access to the public files, and then you can give only certain people to the private files. Here, in this one, you would have to if for instance like legal, schedule, change orders, and estimating were private, you'd have to in your document management system, you'd have to apply the same permissions to all 4 of these folders. So that could be a bit of a painful thing. Also, sometimes you have to have view capabilities and download capabilities. So if they they could just even if you don't want them viewing it, then that would be a deterrent for the all-in-one method. But the public and private, you can kind of see right here, you've got your 6 through 10 right there, and then for public files you've got 1 through 5, and then 11 and 12, right? So then those would all be in there. Okay. So that's our naming convention kind of discussion. I guess any questions? All right. So I will stop sharing my screen, and then we'll go on. And so like I said at the end there, if there was some way that you could automate moving files from one place to another, that would save you a lot of time. Because I can tell you, for me personally, I was tasked with doing this for Walsh Construction as a whole, and with my job before that at an advertising agency, I was underscore versus dash. I'll answer that one in a second. I was tasked with coming up with like a folder structure for all this, and really, basically what I found was simplicity was the key. But managing my files from one place to another, it was a time-consuming and painful process. It probably took me an hour a day just to update files between multiple places. For me personally, I had to update things in BIM 360, in Procore, in SharePoint, or on our server. And so I had to do that for the server to back up files for our team, so that we had that at the end of the project at Walsh. And then I'd have to back up the document management system, which was SharePoint, so that everybody on the team had access to it that was not a Walsh employee. And then I'd do the same thing for Procore or BIM 360, because that was our field software. So I was doing that same bit of work 3 times. And so doing the folder structure once is frustrating enough, but doing it 3 times, you're going to start pulling your hair out pretty quickly. So basically, when I came here to Applied, our owner always asks, what's a broken workflow in your industry? And so they asked me that, and so then I thought of that problem. And so he paired me with the developer, and we built 360 Sync. And so basically, it's just going to allow you to move files from one place to another, and then everything's going to be the same. It's all going to be updated, and everything's going to be uniform, automatically. Okay. And so if you see this slide, this shows everything that we currently connect to. I won't go through all of them, but I'll just hit the high points. With BIM 360, we can connect to anything that's Autodesk Docs. So that's BIM, that's Field, Glue, Docs, Team, Design, Build, Autodesk Construction Cloud. All of those things we can connect to, and we can take files to it or from it. Okay. We also we can connect to Procore. We can take files to or from the Drawings tool and the Documents tool, and then we can actually export and download files from RFIs and submittals. Okay, so we can back up our RFIs and submittals. For Windows, we can connect to you install 360 Sync on that Windows computer, but basically you can download or you can upload or download to or from any Windows device that 360 Sync's installed on. So that could be your shared drive or a server, or that could be something like Box or Dropbox or Panzera or Ignite, OneDrive, Google Drive, stuff like that. And then the rest of them, SharePoint, Bluebeam, Vault, A-Site, Viewpoint for projects. And Citrix files. We can connect to all those things. But but basically, what I'll do now is I'll jump back into my another demo, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to take these naming conventions these two naming conventions that I created up to the BIM 360 project that I had open at the beginning. So this one right here, okay? And so then we'll come in here and we'll set up permissions, and you'll see kind of the positives and the negatives, okay? So we'll start off here, and I'll start off in 360 Sync. And so basically, if I'm going to connect to BIM 360, it's super easy to do. I pick what I want to connect to, and so if I'm going to primarily I want to connect to Team and Docs, but I've already got it set up to connect to Glue and HQ as well. But I put my username and my password in, and since I'm connecting to Glue, I put my Glue company ID in, and then I hit Connect. And so once I do that, it's going to ask me to sign in. Okay, so I do that. Then I hit sign in, and then it's going to ask me the first time that I do it to allow 360 Sync to work. So I hit allow, and so now that's it. I'm done. If I'm going to connect to Procore, it's the same thing. Really, it's even simpler. I just put my my username in, and then I'm good to go. So something went wrong with my credentials there, but that's okay. I'm just showing off BIM 360 here, so not important. But you do that for all of these, and basically 360 Sync's going to save that stuff so that you don't have to, input it every time that it runs. And so from there, I'm just going to add a project. And so we'll call this document management. Okay, and so there's two things we can do. We can publish models from BIM 360 Design, and we can sync files from multiple data sources. And so that's what we're going to do. So the first thing we're going to do is, since we want to upload our folder structure from our server to BIM 360, is we're going to choose Windows as our source, and then BIM 360 as our destination. And so I'll come in here, and I'll just find that folder, and it was called Keeping Documents Organized. There we go. So if I wanted to do the all-in-one folder structure, I could do that. And so then I can come in here and I can find the project that I want to connect to. And so again, that was the BIM 360 Docs Only Document Management, parentheses. There we go. So it's that. So I find the project, then I pick the folder. So if I wanted to, I could just drop this all in one into the project files folder, or I could create a folder here. And that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to drop those all in one, all into that folder. So now I'm going to hit save and duplicate, because we're also going to do the same thing for the public and private. Then I'll just drop those right there. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to hit save. And so now, oh, one thing I forgot to mention, one of the cool things that we've been able to do is we can actually filter by file type. So if you just want to transfer files from one place to another that are a specific file type, you could do that. So if you just wanted to do PDFs, then you could just find PDFs here on the list. Or maybe you wanted to do PDFs and Revit models. There we go. I could do that. But I want to do all of them, so I'm just going to uncheck that. So I want everything to move. But I'll just do that, and then I'll hit save. Okay, so I've set this up. So now it's going to do both of my folder structures. Typically, you would only do one, but since I'm going to show you how it works, we'll do that here. So so we could do that, and then also, I guess, well, no, we'll just go ahead and do that. So So now all I have to do is run this thing. So there's 3 ways to do that. Okay. The first way is I could hit my gear here and then hit create desktop shortcut. So when I do that, it creates a little button that pops up on my desktop. If I double click that button, then 360 Sync would start to run. Okay. Or I could hit play and then it would start running since I've already got it open. But if I wanted this to run on a schedule every day, Monday through Friday, then I could just check those boxes, choose, the time I wanted 360 Sync to run. If I needed it to repeat multiple times during the day, so for this example, every 2 hours, then I could do that. But I just want it to run once a day. So I'll just put my username and password in here. And I hit save, and then I'm good to go. Okay, so then basically now 360 Sync is going to run automatically, regardless of if I'm logged in to the computer or not. Okay, so now we can see it's already started with the all-in-one. So while this is going, I'll come back to my demo here in a second. But basically, while this is running, I'll get back to some of my questions, or some of the questions that I got. So I see Grace asked the question, what's my opinion about underscore versus dash? I don't have an opinion about underscore versus dash or underscore versus space versus dash. Pretty much every document management system uses, allows for underscores and dashes. I would not suggest putting question marks, quotation marks, commas, greater than, less than signs in there. So to me, it doesn't matter. Like, I think that they both do a good job of kind of breaking up, some kind of naming convention, so you know where you need to look. So I don't really have an opinion there. I personally use dashes, but underscores are perfectly fine. It does the trick, the exact same. Okay. So let's see. So while we've got this going, let's check and see where we are with our folder structure. Okay. So here with the all-in-one, I've got my folder structure already built in. The positives for that, like I said, are that, everything's all in one thing. And then I could, if I click on this one and then hit the parentheses and permissions, I can, lower, well, actually, I just need to add it. So I could give, for this particular role, I could give a specific view, upload, and download permissions. So then it does that. Okay. But then if I also needed to do it for this one, I would need to do the same thing here. Right, so I do that, and I could keep going down the list if I needed to modify the things. But what's great here is that for private files, I could subcontractors, I could come in here, and then I could, basically I could just not give them any access. But then for this one, I could give them, let's see, view only. And then if they just needed access to some particular folder in here, then I could do that. Or maybe if I needed to, I'll add a subfolder here. Let's see, subcontractor A. Okay, so I do that. Now I can give permissions just to, that particular company. So let's just see, or to that, let's see, subcontractors. I'll just do that. Or let's see, company. Okay, so for some reason, oh, there we go, companies. So if I wanted to give specific permission to it, so they could view, upload, and download to this particular, folder, then I could do that. But what's great about this is that I can, with the public versus private, I can either give access, I can give access to them, and then for private files I could not give access to them, and so then that gives me more control there. But for the all-in-one, it's like I would have to do that for each folder. Okay, so let's see. I guess that pretty much does it for my presentation today. I guess any questions? All right. So I guess to wrap it up, if you guys have any questions, let's stop sharing. Well, you can email Rachel or Calvin or myself with any questions. Is there a notification system for new versions? So you're asking about in 360 Sync, Ryan. So for in 360 Sync, the user interface will notify you when if a new file's been uploaded. I'll kind of show that off here. I'll bring up my screen one last time. Okay, so if files could go, then you'll see that it was successful. If something failed, then you'll see that. Basically, if a file, let's see, I'll go to another one. I'm sure that I've had a couple of them run a couple of times. If I take a look at this one, let's see. Okay. I haven't run some of these in a while, but basically, if the file had already run, then it would just say skipped here rather than success, and it would be a gray dot. Okay, but if the file was updated, then you would see that it was even if it had run a second time, it would show success. One thing that we have done with we're testing that right now is with Viewpoint. We are actually taking all of the versions from Viewpoint and we're uploading those to BIM 360 in the order that they were, that the version was created. So you'd have a full version history of all of your files. Okay. Okay, now let's see, are there any other questions? Okay, so I guess I'll finalize it here. Basically, just call me or Rachel or Calvin, or shoot us an email if you have any questions. I'm always I'm the resident I guess document management expert, the resident 360 Sync expert here at Applied Software. So if you want to talk about like possibilities for naming conventions for your future, I'm more than happy to kind of kick around some ideas with you. Okay. And then of course, if you want to take a look at 360 Sync, just shoot us an email and then we'll jump on a call with you. Okay. So that's my presentation today, and thanks guys. Have a good rest of the day.